Hello everyone. Welcome for this video tutorial on the segmentation module in aepp. In this video, we will go over the segmentation module and the segmentation in Adobe Experience Platform. As a disclaimer, this is a personal project to explain you the aepp module in Python, the Python wrapper for Adobe Experience Platform API. And in that case, I will not, it's not an official Adobe presentation, so I may omit or may misrepresent or may oversimplify some of the elements that are in Adobe Experience Platform. It may not give you all the answer you're looking for, especially in the Experience Platform Global. I have a series of video, and this is my personal view on how to explain it and in order to use them for Adobe Experience Platform API wrapper, aepp. That being said, we will start and explain the segmentation logic in Adobe Experience Platform today, and we are going then to see how we can use that in aepp. Let's start with the presentation here. So I prepare a presentation because you will see that the segmentation capability in aepp is somehow not limited, but are limited by some of the features that IP are providing, Adobe Experience Platform is providing. It's technically can do everything you want in the API calls, but they have some implication overall, and overall the usage of definition may needs to be done in the UI for some reason you will discover. So segmentation in Adobe Experience Platform. Segmentation is a service in Adobe Experience Platform, and it is actually the core service. So we have discussed previously that Adobe Experience Platform is based on three different databases: the data lake, the UPS, so profile storage, and the UIS, the identity storage. I've done some video, all of them. And then now actually segmentation is going to use the UPS, the projection of the data directly to build your segmentation. So segmentation is basically based on criteria. You cluster profile into segment, and this is what you're going to send to destinations. You can also send dataset as an additional feature, but most of the time to destination. We'll see that you are going to send segmentation population. So profile IDs, or you can even send sometimes attribute on top of the profile ID, so profile attribute. Note that when the segmentation, you cannot send event, you can only send element of an attribute to your destinations. There are three main segment types. They are batch, streaming, and edge. We'll see them in more details later, but basically the batch is on daily evaluation, daily qualification. Streaming is real-time qualification up to 5 minutes. I think it's the SLA that we have. Edge is can be evaluated directly on the edge. I have done a video on explaining Adobe Experience Platform, and we have an edge, which is a type of CDN that is communicating with Adobe Experience Platform Global Hub, what we call the hub, and is living closer to IP Web SDK, particularly for segmentation and testing and using some AGO capability. We'll see them in more detail. So the segment definition are using what we call PQL, which is Profile Query Language in Adobe Experience Platform. So it's a specific language that you can have documentation on Experience League to learn about. And if you want to write segment definition, you will need to use PQL language. PQL language is double naming. Segmentation in Adobe Experience Platform has some guardrails that you need to be aware about. Those are batch. There is a number of batch segments you can have. It's 4,000. Streaming limit is 500, and the number of edge segment is 150. All of them are performance guardrails, so technically they are not really enforced. I think 4,000 is enforced due to the fact that they are the maximum number of segments you can have in a sandbox. All of those limits are per sandbox. But you could technically have more than 500 streaming segment, but then you may hit performance issue and your segment qualification may not be happening in the 5 minutes window that is the SLA, official SLA for streaming segmentation. On top of that, we have also account segmentation for Adobe Experience Platform B2B edition, and we have also segment composition, which is creating segment and with more extra logic on top that we're not going to cover today. Those are 50 and 10 as the limits, and it's hard, so you cannot go over that. You can only create 50 account and then 10 segment composition. One details you can know is that you can run segments flexibly via API calls. So I think now there is even a UI feature that can do that. You can specify some segments and say, no, please, on all of my profile, I want you to run this segment and see if any of my profile store in the UPS, in the profile store, is actually qualifying for those segments. So this can run. You can, I think, run up to 10 or 20 segments at a time. It's a list, so you can not do one by one, but you try to batch them. It used to be quite free and more flexible. Now there is a limit per sandbox of 20 per year of those flexible audience run qualification. So be careful when using that, but sometimes if you are doing some major rework or you need to actually ensure a specific qualification for some segment, then you can actually use this API call. Talking about segmentation, we need to talk about merge policies. We're going to see them now afterwards, but then I'm going to give some definitions. So merge policies are definition of how data, especially on profile, are going to be merged for profile. I told you before that we have different data set that are different profile information, and when we are using the UPS, all of those data sets are going to be merged. And actually, we could have something called profile collapse. You can see that in the identity video. I explained the profile collapse information where two person are actually being merged into one, and you can actually define how the things are going to be merged. There are two options, and the default one, which is the last timestamp win, which means the latest information that has been ingested is going to override the one precedent to that information. So in case you have two persons, so me and my partner are actually in the same organization in two different roles. Uh, if we have a profile collapse, if we have actually now somehow linked our two identities together via a shared device, for example, we're using the same laptop and we have somehow connected, and we don't have limitation on the linking graph rules and all of the things I've explained in the identity videos, then we are going to collapse and our identity are going to be merged. And the latest identity coming will override the other. So for example, if I came and logged in as the latest person, or I have created the account afterwards, and then the profile information of my identity has been merged, then I will overwrite the name, the surname of the partner I am overwriting as. So this is based on the timestamp. You can also set a dataset preference. What dataset preference is that you have different dataset, and now you say this dataset has more important information than the other, and then you can make sure that what is overwriting is the most trustful source. So you can say, okay, my CRM ID is better than my web data, or it's better than my sales information data. So you want to create a hierarchy of which dataset you want to have on top, and he's the most important dataset. So it actually is the one that, when receiving information, will override the other. So you have a maximum of 3 merge policies in Adobe Experience Platform. And we have also something called an active on edge merge policy option for sharing data to edge. As of today, streaming and edge segmentation can only use one merge policy. You cannot use two merge policy for streaming or edge. So if you start selecting a streaming segmentation, we'll see that for evaluating your segment. So it's a real-time evaluation. Then it's automatically attached to one mesh policy, which is your default mesh policy. So it's, if you ever change the mesh policy attached to the streaming or to the edge, then it will automatically change it to all of the other segments as well. The merge policy may impact the profile count you have, and the Adobe Experience Platform license is based on the number of profile you have in store. And then because if you have dataset precedence, or if you want, you could create also no stitch policy where you define that we should not stitch the user together. Then the number of profile will count because, for example, of the profile collapse, we are two different users, but once we are collapsing, we have on single profile. So technically, it's a bad thing because now I'm merging my data with the one with my partner. So you don't have a clear view of who you are targeting, but at the same time, you are reducing the number of profile in your account. So on your license, it will decrease the number of profiles you have to pay for. So those are all of the information you need to be aware of, and your number of profile calculated by the default merge policy you have set up. So if you've changed a merge policy, you will change the count that is in your sandbox and accounted for your license. As a best practice, we always recommend using the last timestamp win merge policy because dataset preference is quite complex to handle and to maintain. It requires a very high level of technicality and implementation logic that is not the default behavior that you should use. A quick note on AGO. So AGO is one of the service, and AGO has some challenges if you are using multiple merge policies. It has some difficulties handling information coming from two merge policies, as AGO has the capability to look for specific profile attribute. Uh, by default, once you want to enter a journey, AGO stands for Adobe Journey Orchestrator. You can build journeys and build some different messages that you want to have in according to the journey that you have started, and the messages could be populated by contextual information in your profile attribute based on the profile attribute of the user, and the profile attribute of the user may change depending the merge policy you have chosen. Therefore, be careful because AGO will have difficulties if you enter the journey with a specific merge policy and segmentation logic, and then you try to access the attribute. It may not use the merge policy for that attribute that you started the journey with. So just be careful about AGO when you have a multi merge policy context in your sandbox. So going into more detail in the segmentation in Adobe Experience Platform, we have batch segmentation that are done on a daily basis, and all segment definition are evaluated against the profile storage. So at that point, all the users are in the UPS are going to be evaluated, and the segment population are going to change. We call them audiences as well. You can call them the audiences are going to change, and you are going to have different number of profile based on that batch is done on a daily basis, so every 24 hours. This is done. It could be at night, it could be at day, and this is the default setup when you create a segment. On streaming segmentation, this is more constricted by the type of qualification you're looking at or the criteria. It's either defining an event based on an event, for example, a purchase has happened, which is less than 24 hours. So if you are doing segmentation with, for example, purchase done in the last 3 months, this is more than 24 hours window, so this cannot be a streaming segment. So that you need to be aware. Normally, your Adobe representative or your consultant will be aware of this kind of details. So when you're building your segment, depending on what you want to do, it may not be possible to do it directly via the streaming segmentation. So you may need to have batch segmentation because if you're looking for something that has months of data, then it requires more compute, and therefore will need to be done in the batch segmentation. Another way is actually if you have only profile attribute in your segment, then it can also be a streaming segmentation. So in turning it around, any segmentation that contains events and with a time frame longer than 24 hours will not be possible to have in streaming segmentation logic. If you are doing pure profile attribute, it's possible to have streaming segmentation. Or if you have event that has less than 24 hours, it's possible to have streaming segmentation. As I said before, streaming segmentation only allows one merge policy rules attached to it. Edge segmentation. Edge segmentation are actually segmentation logic that are run on the edge, so very close to the data collection point, so for very fast qualification for example, A/B testing if you're using target or AGO or for decisioning. So it's not done in the hub, it's done directly on the edge, so very close to the source of data. So it's most of the time something you want to do for web visitors or for hub trackings, and you want to have real-time qualification for A/B testing. However, you have a limitation for the amount of days those profiles remain on the edge, because you can imagine that the edge is not a complete replication of Adobe Experience Platform full profile storage. It has only a partial representation, and it has the data for the user that have been seen in the last 14 days lately. So you would need uh, to be careful about that, as if a user comes after 15 days, when he's reaching the edge will see it. It will not be able to qualify this user on the edge directly. So it will be qualified in real time, and then it will need to take the data back from the hub to the edge, and most likely it will come back as a qualification for this user on the next session, so not on the exact session. So those are a limitation that exist on the edge. If you have a website where people do not come back regularly, so it's really tough to use the edge. If you have a website that people are coming regularly, then it's making a huge benefit for you to use the edge for your A/B testing. You will also need to provide the profile attribute to the edge if you want to use them for your segmentation. I think it's a max of 30 attributes. You may check if that is still correct, because they have changed that list fairly recently. I didn't check. And all limitation as well applying to streaming also apply to the edge, which means your event data needs to be less than 24 hours, and the profile attributes is okay to qualify in the edge, but you need to actually pass it on the edge to actually make it happen. So that is the limitation here. As most of the edge segmentation are done via IPWebSDK, and IPWebSDK are tracking event data. So then, if you have an edge segment that is really only relying on edge profile attribute, then it may not actually run, because you don't never send a profile attribute. You're sending an event payload, and it's not going to work the way you expect it. So those are actually all the definition, and you see they're being quite complex. The default use case are usually batch segmentation. Most of the time, people are thinking they want real time, but they have data that actually not coming real time. We're going to see that, or they can actually wait for the next day to match this segmentation verification. The other one is streaming segmentation. Streaming segmentation is really useful for everything related to RTCDP, so Adobe Experience Platform destination and so on. And that is one of the main use cases. So those are the two main use cases that I'm seeing. Edge segmentation is really fancy and is really close to the user realizing the data and realizing the payload that you want, but it has so much complexity that I would recommend to check with your Adobe representative, or to really check the documentation in order to understand what's going on and test your use case independently. One thing I wanted to make clear, it's the difference between qualification and runtime for segmentation. So what I see when I'm talking with customers is that they have very big confusion between segmentation, run evaluation, and data evaluation. So when we have a streaming segment, even if we have the segment set as a streaming segment, it may not be run as a streaming evaluation, because it depends on how the data are being passed on. So data sent via HTTP or IP Web SDK, then if you go back to the slide or to the Adobe Experience Platform architecture, you will see there's reaching the pipeline, and the pipeline can be evaluated in real time, and then your segment will be evaluated in real time. However, if you are sending data in batch, then it will delay the processing from the data lake to the UPS, and it will run the qualification on the daily batch evaluation. Even if your segment is called a real-time segment, the data loading will be evaluated during the batch segmentation phase because the batch are not hitting the pipeline and the pipeline does not run, and the pipeline is the one evaluating real-time qualification for the segment. So as a conclusion, you can have a segment that has a streaming evaluation definition, but only get data per batch, and therefore the qualification for the user will be done in a batch manner. So be careful about that. I hope it was clear. I wanted to do this things. The aepp capability on segmentation is getting the list of segment, get the population of segment, create or delete segment, and copy segment also. If you want to copy that, it's fairly easy. And understand segment composition path and other segment. You can create segment of segments, and then it can be helpful to understand how all of these things are being done. And I think aepp can really help you for that. One thing I think I didn't specify, but was run it at some point, is that the segment that have been created via APIs are going to be the segments that have been created by APIs cannot be changed in the UI, and that is a limitation from Adobe Experience Platform. We'll come to see that in a minute, and therefore that's why we could copy some element from one segment to another, but creating a brand new segment via API, even though possible, I would reserve that use case for very advanced customers that can really handle the complexity of PQL and handle the capability of modifying the segment via API and understanding how you can format the different PQL statement. So now let's have a look quickly into IP. And you can see the segment are based now on audience. They changed the name, and we have some of the segment, and you can see this data analyst website, which is basically a segment that have now actually 132 qualified audiences. And we can look at the audience here, changing the definition. You can see the code view that will give you some sort of PQL. It could not be the way that you have it writing yourself. I wanted to show you all of the PQL here documented here. You can see all of the different logic and how you can write things. So you can see the code view, and you have actually segment builder view. And to build that segment builder view, this is what is not available in the API. So when you create a segment based purely on the code, there is no way to translate that into this view. So it will not be possible for Adobe Experience Platform UI to read and to understand what you have built in the PQL view, which is a miss and reduce the capability of the segmentation API. So you see that I have added an event. So here you have the attribute, you have the event, and each of them attributes are here and event and here, because you need to think that they have stored a bit differently in the base, because attributes are merged and event are just stored. And there is, as I said, a limit of 5,000 events per profile. So this one of the first video I explained this limitation. And here the event, I specified the URL, and you see the path to that URL is contains data analyst, which is the website that I'm running for my blog. They have a name and so forth. And at the end, you can also see here the merge policy you can see. So you see we have two merge policy, and we're going to see that today. Here, audiences. So the merge policy are actually in the profile setup, and you can see the different merge policies here. And we see we have the default time base, which are based for the profile. So the profile are actually based on the default timestamp. And you see this is the default one. This is one for segment definition. Is a different one you cannot really modify. And you have here another definition that has been done. And you can see this one is actually an active on edge merge policy. So you can, if you use this merge policy, you can then send this segment, the segment using that merge policy to the edge. The default, I would say, normally this is done. This is a sandbox for EMEA consulting, so we are doing tests and so on. I think the best would be here to actually have an active on merge as a default. So the default timestamp uh, based merge policy, and then use that as an active on merge. Really, and then you can see you have a timestamp order or dataset precedence that you can pick. And you can actually then select the different dataset you want to have if you ever do dataset precedent. So this is the way it's done in the UI, and we are going to see now how you're going to see the segmentation in aepp. So I'm going to now have a look in my folder as usual, and doing a shift right click, and then I open the data in the terminal. I can use Jupyter Lab to open the Jupyter Lab interface and all of the Python. I have my last one, which was actually based on identity. Actually, let me rename that into identity demo. And then I'm going to create a new one, which is going to be, let me name it now, segmentation demo. I'm going to import aepp, and from aepp, I can import segmentation. As usual, I'm going to load my configuration. So I'm doing the aepp import config file. So I can autocomplete by starting to write the things and then do Shift Tab. And it's always super useful. I have my config in the aepp demo, the JSON. I can override the sandbox used for the load, but I'm going to use the same, but just showing case the parameters. You can also autocomplete the parameters by doing, for example, connect. I'm going to use these parameters, connect instance equals true, to save this configuration into this variable prod. So now that I have done that, I can actually run the segmentation logic. And as usual, you have a class that you need to instantiate that is the same name than the segmentation, that the module. So now I'm going to say my seg, for example. Okay, let's call it seg prod for some example. And then I'm going to do segmentation with capital S, segmentation, and here I can pass the config, and that will be enough to say. And now I have the segmentation. So now I can actually run my audiences if you want to say seg prod get audiences. And now I can look at all of the audiences that are done. One important thing, or one interesting things that you can have, you can actually see the whole definition of all of the things. And I'm looking for the name of the different elements. Name here is the page view. And normally, if you go down to some level, you can see the metrics that are available, and we can try to have a look into that. Let's give me a sec. Let's do the second one. I don't know which one it is. History. So let's do this one. Page view copy. I'm trying to find the data analyst website. Yeah, perfect. This one, and then you will see here in the metrics. Here, the ID, job ID, the data. You see the total profile, the number of realized. When was this? And this could be interesting for you to build the the list of all the audiences that you have live as of today. You can see their status actually at some point in time, if they are status on the draft or they are live and so forth. And you can see and build and see which audiences are the most population and have interesting information. You can see the segment definition that is on top. The expression is PQL, and you see all of the information that are down here. And what interesting fact about the IPP is you can use that to say extract audiences. In case I was building audience of audiences, then I could use that. In that case, it won't give me anything because there is nothing. Oh, sorry. It will give me anything, but I can say now, give me extract the path that are being used, and you can see it's using the X event path because it's an event base. It's using this one, web page detail URL, and the timestamp because I asked for less than 24 hours, if you remember the segment I was showing you. So this capability of APP is really interesting, I believe, is really interesting. And I'm trying to see if I'm missing anything to show you. You can create a job, you can create a preview, you can delete a job for segment. But all of those are limitation that you have only 20 per year per sandbox. So be careful. You can patch your audience and you can show namespace, but most of the time what we're doing is creating a new audience for very advanced customer, but most of the time we are extracting all of the segments and then automatically create a data frame and our reference and see if it's you can build your complete understanding of how many segments do you have, which population exists in each of the segments, and do that automatically in a more easy way. I hope that was helpful and you can see the potential of the segmentation and better understand the segmentation in Adobe Experience Platform. I see you on the next video.